Hi, Dash.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. No
Right,
one here.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. No one here.
Uh, just the both of us first. Let's start. We have, I think, 4 or 5 people watching.
This is private. Oh, you have people watching. How do you know who's watching? Sorry, a bit.
Sorry, I'm streaming this on Facebook on our Open Coffee Club group.
Oh, okay, okay,
So yeah, so we may have other guests joining in for the discussion later.
okay.
Well, we can start. So, how's life under the MCO? I can see you haven't got a haircut.
I never got a haircut for the last I don't know how many years. Maybe got a
Mm.
hair just a trim with the tips, but no, I never get a haircut.
Right. So, how's
I
it
do
been?
a beard trim though, huh?
So how's it been for you? I know that just before the MCO started, you were looking to, launch some new ideas, some new programs, and all that. And then now we went into a lockdown. So how's that going along? Are you still proceeding? Do you have to change your format?
I
Is it Are
uh,
you on
you know
hold?
Yeah, thanks. I actually thrive on uncertainties. I thrive on complexities. I thrive on difficulties. Not that I go around looking for difficulty, but
Yeah,
I'm never surprised by it.
right.
So it didn't really uh, uh, impact any of the plans because I haven't launched anything. So it just means that I now have to think bigger and think different.
All right.
You know.
How about
So
just giving us the introduction about I mean, I know because we had a discussion about that. So for the guys who are watching now, maybe you want to give a quick intro on your program, whatever plan that you had.
yeah, I'm just looking so terrible on the screen. It's just been a long day. I just came from taking my dogs for a long walk down around my condo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a previous call. Yeah, so my name is Dash, guys. I mean, whoever's watching, I run Startup Malaysia, and also that you see, my passion or my interest is in the young population between the ages of 15 to 25. That has always been my interest. And the reason I'm interested in this group is because they are defining the future. I mean, together, of course, we all defining the future. But we are going to leave behind a world in which they and their children are going to live. And what I found in my journey in the building entrepreneurial uh, people is that now more than before, the need for self realization or self discovery is very, very important. It's no more just the product market fit, but it's founder product market fit. So I operate at a very different stage in a startup cycle. If you look at a typical startup cycle, I operate at a very early phase, which we call the nucleation phase, or the phase where uncertainty, ideas, your insights, all the moving parts come along, where the DNA of the innovator is. I think that part needs to be strengthened because a lot of our young people just get an idea, go to an accelerator, and then they fail, and then they say, "Oh my God, my startup has failed." But you haven't built the fitness fitness levels earlier. So I work on that part. So when people ask me, "Oh, how many companies have you launched?" Whatever, to me, that's a different stage. For me, it's how many entrepreneurially minded people have you built, and that has always been my passion. So my new venture is called Momentum. The website's still not up. I'm still working on working. I've got a lot of pots in many fires, as they say. I'm working on it, and I'm actually doing a lot of validation on that. And so it is about self-discovery. It's about the nucleation process, and why the nucleation process. I think the world is going to be more and more uncertain, and people who ever start anything, there's going to be a succession of starts and failures. You got to stop me. I keep on talking. This is my area.
No, no, just go ahead. Yeah.
So there are going to be a lot of successes and failures. There's going to be a lot of endings and starts. People have to learn. Young people have to learn about these successions and be prepared for those things as they go along.
Right. And so I'm sure some may not know that you're the one who first brought Startup Weekend to Malaysia.
Mhm.
That's how the whole StartupMalaysia.org started, right? The movement. Maybe we can share some of those experiences.
So I
Uh,
was
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I've been involved in the ecosystem for many years. I think maybe from year 2000, I joined a team, and from there I found that I was working with a team, and I was just a member, and then became a council member. And then I found that policy and writing policy, and that's not my sort of cup of tea. That is a very important part, but my heart was in something else. So I left team, and then I went around building my company called Warisan Global. It became a very successful company. We had a lot of business with Maxis and all that. We had 80 people. It's a hugely successful company. So I was focused on that. But in 2010, I was invited by the Kaufman Foundation, because I was also doing a lot of entrepreneurship competition, to become the country host for the Global Entrepreneurship Week. They found me through my network in London, and then they asked me. I said okay, but then so I became a country host, and that grew to actually it became a national event. And Dato Saifuddin, who's currently the Minister of Communication, was at that time Deputy Minister of Higher Education, and he one day just walked into my one of my hackathons, and he just walked into it, and said, I just was curious to know what you're doing with the youth. And it was unusual for a minister or a deputy minister to not to have not been invited to just walk in. He said, I heard about this from somewhere, and I called up someone. They said this is where it's happening, and walked into my. Then he sat down. He talked to all the youth. He was excited, and then he became a great supporter of the Global Entrepreneurship Week, and we actually grew it nationwide, basically with very, very bootstrap. At that time, people didn't know what a startup was. Well, entrepreneurship was not a big cool thing, and I was known as the, what do you call it, as the rara guy, go around doing this kind of events. And to me, that was very important, because you need to generate the kind of excitement in people to say that I can take my ideas and move it forward. And a lot of people want to measure success in that, but you can't measure success. When you do this, you got two kinds of programs. One is to build entrepreneurs, one is to build entrepreneurial people who get
Right.
excited about entrepreneurship. And that doesn't generally relate to a venture directly. We got to get away from the mindset that anyone who tries to build and get into an entrepreneurial life and build a project around it should already launch a unicorn. I think that kind of a mindset needs to go, because a startup is an experiment machine. It's
Right.
hypothesis testing. So I wanted to generate that kind of a mindset, and so I went around the country. We became one of the top countries in the world, of 70 countries in Global Entrepreneurship Week. And then I met the founder of or the co-founder of Startup Weekend in China, in Shanghai, and we were talking. I got a photograph of him somewhere, with he and I talking, and saying, let's do it in Malaysia. And we brought to Malaysia the first Startup Weekend. When we brought to Malaysia, we were trying to raise sponsorship, and when I pitched to the sponsors, we need to bring this, in 57 hours, entrepreneurs will be able to pitch, get an idea, start to pitch. People just laughed me out of the door. They said, what are you talking about? This is in 2000 and I don't know, 11. Sorry, I'm sipping a Sauvignon Blanc. So yeah, so they said, "What are you talking about? How can someone come up with an idea and pitch in 57 hours? There's no such thing. We and universities teach entrepreneurship 3 years, and people still can't launch companies. What are you talking about?" By that time, we had the U.S. embassy said, "Hey, this is something very interesting. Why not we will give you the money?" So they gave us 10,000 ringgit to fly Mark Nagar here and organize what we call a startup day. And our first startup weekend was called a startup day, and we flew into. So we started the first day in there was 250 people. At that time, people just got excited, and all the VIPs wanted to come. So the startup day, which is start the morning and end at pitching in the night, only started in the afternoon because everybody decided to give a speech and became a big, another huge event. So we traveled around the country, Penang. We went to Kelantan. We went to Johor. We traveled around, startup with Mark. Mark was first time in Malaysia. He's a co-founder of Startup Weekend, or he bought over the brand or something. Great guys. And then we said, okay, we are already in Johor Bahru. Then we called someone. I think it was Jeffrey Payne or someone who told us go and work with Microsoft in Singapore. So I think, went to Singapore, did the first one in Singapore. Then we flew down to Jakarta. They did the first one in Jakarta. Then we flew to Cambodia later and did one in Cambodia. So we did take the first startup weekend to all these places. Maybe Cambodia came a little late, but we did the whole and Singapore and Jakarta at that time. Yes, startup weekend. Sorry for the
So you,
long wind.
so you startup weekend in the whole region then?
I did, yes. Not the
Right.
whole region, but Jakarta was a big one. We did with
Right.
the Chiputra Foundation. Chiputra was the guy who owned the Chiputra Foundation, who just passed away. He's the father of entrepreneurship. So Mr. Chiputra himself came for our first event. He was 70 something billionaire. He was there being one of our first judges and whatever
Right.
it is. Yeah.
Right. And then you went on to also run the Founders Institute in Australia, right? Uh,
That,
how was that
yeah,
experience?
that was much later after I went to the Obama summit. Yeah, so I knew Edio. Sorry, I don't know how. Yeah, the Founder Institute was going to come. So my family and I, we actually moved to Australia, but I wasn't really migrating because my kids were going, my wife was going. So I had a deal with my wife that I'll go up and down for 2 years and then I'll move in. So she agreed. So when I went there in startup, there was no accelerator in Western Australia at that time.
Okay.
I became part of the startup ecosystem there through a Malaysian who moved there when he was 2 years old or 5 years old, called Dr. Marcus, who actually started a company called Health Engine, which is a very big, successful company. And I slowly became very active in the ecosystem. But then I found out there was no accelerator at that time. So and that it so happened, Edio Resi was talking to me, and then he said, I would like you to run Founder Institute, but I haven't decided where. But why don't you do the test? So I said, yeah, I'll do the test. I didn't know there was a test. So one morning when I woke up from bed, I saw there is a WhatsApp message said, "Can you do the test right now?" So I didn't get out of bed. I just sat and did the test. And I think I don't know. I think you must get 80 marks and above for the test or something. So he said, "Okay, you're director of the thing. I think between Malaysia and KL and Australia, I think you should do Western Australia." I said, "Okay, fine, I'll do it in Western Australia." And but he said it's going to be a tough market because these guys are going to come in with money because they work and then they come to the class at night. They're not going to come and ask for grants or whatever. They all have money. They're Western Australia, all these young rich kids from those days, all the I think all the whatever they were selling. So I said, okay, lah, I don't mind doing Australia, but so he warned me it's a tough market. But As my luck would have it, I had a very good co-partner, a young lady who's very energetic by the name of Claire. And so we both partnered it, and we didn't have any mentors. We started, and then because we couldn't get mentors, we both started teaching the subjects. So that's when I got really exposed to I mean, I have the teaching entrepreneurship in these things, and they ask you a lot of questions, and if you don't know your stuff, they will put it in the Facebook, or they'll say, who is this guy, where does he come from, and he doesn't know his stuff. So the 2 years I ran there, I taught or rather I mentored, and even actually some of it was almost like a semi lecture of the concept of startups, plus I think a little bit of startup finance. And then after 2 years, I decided it was taking a toll on me because I was flying up and down. Every Thursday is the night is the class. I have to fly down every Wednesday, and then I come back on Sunday, and then I have to go back again on Thursday every week. You have to commit yourself for 2 years. It was just too much for me. So I told Eddie, look, it's already done 2 years. I really need to keep up. So we handed over to another person. Yeah. So yes, I ran Founder Institute. Again,
Nice, very nice. I think a lot of people won't know that story, so it's good for you to share.
Yeah.
We actually have a question from one of our friends here. Very general question, but either of you guys, Arvind, thanks for joining us. You've been very quiet.
Hey, Arvind. Yeah, Arvind looks good, man.
Yeah, he's looking younger and younger with the long hair.
Yeah. I think anyone would look good.
So our friend here asked, what would the startup scene look like after the MCO is lifted, with the economic recession and all? People are talking about that. What do you guys think?
I'll let you guys answer, then I'll maybe take the last. Up to you. Inba, you are active on all this.
Arvind, what do you think?
I can't hear you.
Is your mic on?
No, his mic was muted.
No, it's on. It's not muted here. I can't hear you. Okay, I think I have to reconnect.
Okay. So Inba, you want to go, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, for me, I don't know. I think it looks very uncertain. I don't think anyone can give a clear picture on how the startup scene will be like, because I don't know who will survive. Right, that's the first thing. A lot of startups will probably die during the MCO, and or may have to pivot to something totally different. And I think after the MCO is lifted, life will still not be the same. Obviously, there's a lot of changes. I think even if the MCO is lifted, there'll be a lot of new rules on social distancing, and things won't be the same exactly like how it is now. So many of these startups may have to pivot and change the way they do business. So things will be different. I don't know whether we'll bounce back as fast as we should, but so to me it's very uncertain. So at this moment, I think it's a bit too early to predict what's going to happen in the next 3 months. So maybe I'm not, I'm not a huge expert in this. So I'm more like I'm waiting to see how things are moving before I can have a clear picture of what may happen. What do you think, Dash?
So let's start with the definition of a startup, right? I come from the Steve Blank school of thought. Okay, I don't know how other people define startups, but the lean startup methodology basically originated from Steve Blank. For those of you who don't know who Steve Blank, he was actually a very successful entrepreneur, listed 8 companies, and was a professor at Stanford. I think he's now moved to Berkeley. I've met him several times, and he's written the startup manual. If you care to read it, and Eric Ries, who from his school of thought, started the lean startup movement. So the definition of startup, as Steve Blank says it, is a temporary organization in search of a repeatable and scalable business model. So if you follow, the keywords are temporary and in search of. So it hasn't found a business model that's repeatable or scalable yet, which means it's still in an experimental stage, which means it's still in a state of beta stage, right? So these kind of things, which means that startups will constantly need to test their models, and they are going. If you are a startup at that stage, then this is the best time for you to think that who is your customer, what is your real business, and can you use the internet to jump on the internet to scale your business faster than you planned before. Maybe your test market is larger than it was, and you could actually, if your value proposition is strong, you could actually sell online. The economic situation definitely is going to be different. The whole landscape is going to be different. People's buying power is going to be curtailed. However, having said all that, there will be people who will buy if the services are of value. But if you are at a later stage of startup, I mean, a startup stage where you are, in some kind of revenue already generated, you're already growing, and you have a kind of a business. So I would categorize like a startup that was doing well before COVID and had cash. You will figure out things. You were doing well, but you had no cash. You need to really have some help. But you were not doing well and you had cash. You need to really think whether this is your business that you want to get into and you want to change it. But you're not doing well and you had no cash. Just get out of the game, and find something else to do. Go and get a job, maybe, or find something else to do. And a startup means that you need to come with a problem that is worth solving. Not just, it's not a lifestyle that you want to stick with. If you don't have food on the table, you may want to find a job for a while and then do startup as a part-time thing. So if you look at the economic situation, it's going to be different. It's not going to be easy. The entire landscape is going to change. The mindset to have is, I was just in my class, my postgraduate class from Cambridge, uh, reunion yesterday, I think, or day before, I can't remember. We had a first time reunion after so many years, which we were planning a physical reunion, but it didn't happen. So we had an online reunion. And my entrepreneurship professor actually said, you got to have a 100 oblique 1,000 mindset, meaning how are you going to survive 100 days? How are you going to survive 1,000 days? Maybe you want to have a mindset of 30 to 300. How are you going to survive the next 30 days and the 300 days? And then try to, roll it over to the next 30 days, another 300 days, and go on 3 or 4 times to see how you'll survive. So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult. Accept the fact and change it. Don't deny it. Prepare for the worst, and don't hope that it's going to be any better. It's going to be terrible.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Now we can hear
Now,
you.
now can I?
What do you think, Arvind? What are your thoughts?
So I think your Dash's 2x2 matrix is probably right. If you have some cash, the situation where you have cash means that for startups today there is a way to survive, right? But those that don't have cash, and I'm of the opinion that a lot of startups are cash poor. I think we're going to see personally, not to be so negative, but I think we're going to see a slaughter. A lot of startups are going to fall by the wayside. And this would be a pity, because a lot of these startups have had a lot of taxpayer money and a lot of angel money and a lot of VC money that's been invested in. That goes with the game, right? I mean, that's part and parcel. But what I think the focus should be, from a policy perspective, ecosystem builder perspective, I think we should be looking at replenishing the ranks. So it's well worth knowing that if you look back 100 years, from Walt Disney to HP to FedEx to Microsoft to Uber to Dropbox, Airbnb, whatever you want to call it, right? All the big companies came out in times of recession, right? So there is a very clear trend for, either obvious or not so obvious reasons, that opportunities, areas like this, times like this is when new ideas come in. And most importantly, not because new ideas suddenly spring up, because it's only in times like this that consumer behavior changes, right? Business behavior changes. And they're willing to look at new business models. They're willing to look at new ways of doing things. For example, if you look at insurance, for example, right? If before this, you were a digital insurer and you were having difficulty trying to, supersede the human element of face-to-face interaction. Now we are in an environment where face-to-face interaction is no longer that, it's not going to be the preferred way for all people, right? So it's these types of opportunities that I think startups need to capitalize on. From my perspective, we need many, many more startups to come in, because this is a once in a decade, once in a generation opportunity to really, really create 1,000, 2,000 startups as a country. Because only when you create those kind of numbers will we, in 3 to 5 years time, see, the $10 million companies, the 30, forget the unicorn lie. I agree with you, Dash, right? But only then will we see the $10 million, $20 million, $50 million companies, and we see enough volume of them that they actually start making an impact through the economy. But to answer the question, it's going to be tough for the next 12 to 24 months for everybody who already has a startup.
Right.
For everybody who is not yet had a startup yet, and you've lost your job, or you've been retrenched, or you're on unpaid leave, or this is the time. This is the time for some of the talent who went back to corporate because they were, corporates were stealing entrepreneurial talent, all right, to work within the companies, paying them nice, juicy salaries. This is the time for them. You will see that flow back towards entrepreneurship. That's my read on it.
Okay, and so recently there's been a huge trend, right? I see a lot of startups pivoting into like grocery delivery, for example. You see every other startup trying to jump into that, especially the ones who are in the similar space. What do you guys think about this trend?
Well, if there is an opportunity, I think they will. I mean, it's like, in a Tom Yum group of stalls, you have all guys selling Tom Yum, So I think if there is an opportunity, there's a demand, and they can make money, they can put money on the table, it's fine. I think they should do it. The guys, the Airbnb guys, I think Brian Chesky said that when Airbnb first started, they couldn't make money, they couldn't make ends meet. They sold cereals, Obama cereals, breakfast cereals, So they made Obama shaped cereals and so. So I guess if there's something that makes you the money at that point, you may want to do it. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, I would look at what I'm passionate about before I do it. But if you find a need that you can quickly close the gap to earn some cash flow, and there is a steady stream of customers who want to give you the business, I think that's fine.
Groceries, I think the danger is creating a startup inside the MCO, right? And calling it a startup. It's good to play around. It's good to sort of experiment, try out some new ideas, work out a small operations playbook. But first and foremost, we should be building a business that is going to, if you are thinking of building a business now, you should build a business that's going to work after the MCO. It'll still be a new world. It'll still be new environment, new consumer behavior, new business behavior. But but let's not build entire business on the fact that everybody is locked up at home now, in a matter of 2 weeks per month,
No, but it should be a COVID economy awareness. It's not MCO lockdown or whatever it is, but it's a COVID economy is going to be different. And the business that thrives around this period, serving a need, and then it is addressing the COVID economy, it's fine, I suppose.
I mean, I give you a simple example. For example, like problems that are going to arise, right? In a post-COVID economy, hotels, right? They're going to be hit on F&B revenue. They're going to be hit on events revenue, like venue rentals. they're going to hit on room rentals revenue. So you have a business owner like a hotel right now who has 500 rooms who can no longer make money to keep the building going. I guess the thing to ask now is what else can those rooms be used for, and what other business models. I mean, I don't have the answer, but that's the type of questions that are out there right now to solve, because these are economic answers that need to be, because otherwise these hotels, I mean, you got $1 billion hotel, you can't just sell it. It's not so easy. You can't just, how are you going to pay the bill? So this is the time to talk to for enterprising entrepreneurs to go and find these economic opportunities, these problems that are in the economy, and figure out solutions to capitalize on that.
Right. Interesting. Okay. This other thing I was thinking about, the funding ecosystem, right? Because Dash, you're very familiar with that, and Arvind, you run StartFund, so I'm sure you've been talking to a lot of people in the funding ecosystem. What is that looking like? Are investors now still keen to invest in startups, or is everyone just gonna put everything on hold? How's that going?
I think it depends on what stage you're looking at, right? If you look at any existing startup right now that is in a pre-seed stage or a seed stage, they are very weak. They have really not much cash to play around with. The business model is not established, so we don't know whether COVID has affected it or not. And if those kind of startups are trying to raise money, then it's going to be really tough, right? Because there's too much uncertainty. Startups that are already past that Series A hurdle, they've already got 20, 30, 40, 50 staff. They've got good money coming in. They may be running at a negative, but the business model is good and unaffected by COVID. Then yeah, I think you can convince existing and current new VCs to maybe extend the runway if they can pivot fast enough. New startups is what I'm really interested in, to see what the funding landscape is going to be like. So I think there's going to be a 3 to 6 month lag where the market sort of figures out where the dust settles with regards to COVID, and we're gonna try and see. Then I think the money will start flowing once the entrepreneur actually commits. So you think about it, we need a few entrepreneurs to come in, find ideas, find problems to solve, commit, right? Start a website, start a business, get out there, come up with a product or a service, and then raise funding. So that maybe a 3 to 6 month lag between when money starts flowing again.
Right. What do you think, Dash?
I mean, this is how I think. I mean, if you look at what has happened in Malaysia recently, I mean, our friends in Malaysia, have invested in 10 companies. And if you look at that, it shows that funders or people who are familiar with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial ventures have always invested in resilient entrepreneurs and businesses that can respond to exogenous shocks like this. So it's very positive in the ecosystem that Scale Up Malaysia basically has invested in 10 startups like this. So if you ask me, I think a pre-COVID, you could have an idea, you could go out and do whatever. It's business as usual. But today is an opportunity for entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, to rewrite the rules of what the future is going to look like, and be brave enough to imagine how the new landscape will look like. And anyone who starts something with that kind of perspective, I think money would come, and these entrepreneurs will find these funders would find it interesting to have better valuations and be able to back these kind of entrepreneurs. So I think this is the time for the real innovators to step up the plate, rewrite the rules of the game, and show what you're made of, in terms of saying, okay, this is the situation, the pandemic is here, the world is changed, this is my hypothesis, This is how the world has changed. This is how the world will change. This is how the world will be in the next few years. And I think there are needs of people are going to be like this. Education is going to be like this. Food delivery is going to be like this. Transport is going to be like this. And if your hypothesis is strong, if you have done startups before, if you have good scar tissues before, if you are resilient, this is the thing, like Naval Angel Lace always says, entrepreneurial efforts can fail, but not good entrepreneurs. So if you are a good entrepreneur, you will find a way to come back. So don't think about funding, think about how you're going to rewrite the rules of the game and step up the plate. Money would come. Money will always come to people who have ideas, who are solving a problem, and the world is porous. Money can come from any part of the world. It doesn't have to be. Money is not limited to Malaysian venture capitalists or anyone like that. It can come from any part of the world. So don't worry about money. Come up with a solid idea and test it. Using your network. Test the idea. Show the world that you are thinking out of the box.
So one of our viewers said you're absolutely right.
Sorry, who said?
One of our viewers in the comments said you're absolutely right.
And I don't think that it's going to be. We're not looking at a paradigm shift here, right? If you look at before this Dash, Inba, the world was already moving towards what we loosely call a digital revolution, right? And the very nature of digital revolution means that one big aspect of it is how do I do things digitally instead of face to face, right? I mean, that was how do I buy insurance digitally instead of looking at an agent? How do I go on a tour looking at my phone instead of using a tour agent, for example, right? This COVID pandemic only accelerates that, right? So it's not too much off the tracks, right? It's just a further acceleration of a lot of the digital businesses already. So I think a lot of people won't have to completely reinvent the wheel. We're not talking about a fundamental shift of technology or of how we interact. We already have the platforms. The devices are there. The cloud is there. The big Facebook, Google's, Amazon's, they're already all there. All we have to do now is come up with better business models, right? To understand consumer behavior. I think that's the key. I mean, you won't understand it. You start with a hypothesis, but ultimately the way to understand consumer behavior from your hypothesis is you test and you test and you test and you experiment and you learn. And I think that's going to be that has to be. I mean, I see a lot of Malaysian startups shooting from the hip, right? No testing, no experimentation, intuition, I think this is the way it's going to be. I'll just whack. So I think there's going to be a lot less of that. Investors are going to want to see more science behind how the money is spent.
Okay, we have a question about Industry Revolution 4.0. I mean, that was the buzzword before all this started. Everyone was talking about, IR 4.0. What do you guys think about that? How is this COVID situation going to help with the IR 4.0 movement?
So Arvind, you want to go, or Inba, you want to go first? I have my thoughts on it, but I can wait.
Go ahead. I actually don't have much thoughts on IR 4.0, so I leave it to you guys.
I don't know whether it is IR 4.0 or AI or all these buzzwords, right? I mean, IR 4.0 it all came fine, it's great. But I tell you, your question is, can Malaysia move forward? The answer is, should Malaysia turn this this adversity make it into an opportunity? There were people talking about IR 4.0. There were people talking about small businesses, Machik Kias of the world who are not digital, not selling things online, not online, but now need to go online. We had the luxury of time before. Now, in the process, when COVID has come, we don't have the luxury of time. You are You need to survive. You get out of this rut. That means a Machikia who is not sold online has to get online. So you got to get onto the platform, get on Instagram, get on whatever it is platform to sell online. And the same way, if you ask me, should Malaysia or can Malaysia move forward, I would think that Malaysia should actually think that this is an opportunity. This is where we should jump in. And a lot of young people who are graduating today may not going to have a job tomorrow. And then they may say, oh my God, what am I going to do? So this is your time to learn the skills that is emerging now. At the same time, have a mindset that says, this is not enough. I'm going to become a continuous learner. I'm going to continuously learn, because you can become an IR 4.0 expert today. In 2 years down the road, someone's going to come up with something, another jargon, and you're going to try playing catch up with that. So I basically think that you got to be in a state of what we call as permanent beta. I am going to be a lifelong learner, jump on it, and enough critical mass of people jump on this kind of technology, whether it's data science or whatever it is. I think Malaysia will move forward. I think the young people need to take the bull by the horns and do it. You guys can do this. Take time, maybe 1,000 to 10,000 guys. Just say go online. I mean, there's so many online programs that some of it are quite even free. Just get on it and do it. You write the rules. Don't wait for someone to tell you. The days are over when you need to talk to authorities to tell you what to do. You make the rules. So you got to write the playbook, guys. So get a group going and start doing that. I just need to.
Arvind, your thoughts on that?
I need to step into the restroom. I'll be back in a bit.
Sure.
I think. I think when you talk about Industrial Revolution 4.0, I think it doesn't change, right? I mean, that the pandemic doesn't change that. What is it really? It's a bunch of new technological trends, right, that have come upon us. So, AI technology has hit maturity. We now have the ability to collect vast amounts of data, process vast amounts of data, because we have computing power like we never had before. We have 1 billion iPhones or 2 billion iPhones. We have device platforms all over the world. So, with the download of an app, I can hit 2 billion people. That kind of distribution I never had before. I think this is what Industrial Revolution 4.0 is. It is all of these mature technologies that are now at your fingertips, right? But they are just tools. I meet a lot of startups that come and tell me they are AI startups. I'm like, yes, but if you are an AI startup, what are you AI in, right? Are you AI in manufacturing, or are you AI in, are you using AI to help banks better detect fraud, credit card fraud, right? Are you using AI to predict when cars may have accidents? If you don't have a business case or a use case for AI, then it shows that the entrepreneur has a fundamental lack of understanding of what is this Industrial Revolution 4.0. So it's not just a buzzword, like Dash said. It's a tool, right? We have AI engines and we have lots of data out there that can be applied to, again, business models, consumer behaviors, insights that you can get from how companies and people are behaving, and then use that technology to solve problems. Again, it's always about solving problems, right? If a bank has problem with credit card fraud, Malaysian Airlines has problems with credit card fraud, how can you use AI and data to mitigate that for them? That's the startup. The startup is the marriage of the technology and the business model. Business model is the economic imperative, and technology is the enabler, right? So can Malaysia move forward? Absolutely. But entrepreneurs need to understand the stack. And what that means is they need to understand a little bit of depth into what is AI, what is big data. You need to understand the conceptual framework behind, because this is not as simple as e-commerce and food delivery anymore. These are low complexity businesses, right? These are very operational heavy businesses. We're talking about Industrial Revolution 4.0. The technology stack is much more, it's much higher. It requires more understanding. And that's where I agree with Dash. Please learn a little bit more, go deeper into AI, try to understand what 3D printing is all about, play around with the 3D printer, and then you will, once you have more of a subject matter understanding of what all of these things are, you'll be able to build better businesses around it. Malaysia can, but you need to learn, without learning, you cannot hustle your way into into an AI startup, or you can't just, I don't think it works,
Right, interesting.
That was a question earlier, right?
Yes. Is your volume on your stream?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear a double. I hear a double voice.
No more.
All right. Okay. So this other thing is, so last week I was in a Zoom call. There was a discussion hosted by Brickfields Asia College, right? So we were talking about how startups and SMEs can survive this period, and then we had this topic about government assistance. So my personal view was what I shared. I'm not the kind of person who would like to demand things from the government. To me, the government has a lot of things in their head. So whatever they can do for us as entrepreneurs, we take. But my view is that entrepreneurs should take the lead to come up with solutions to overcome the situation, whether alone, individually, or collectively as a community. My view is that entrepreneurs should take the lead, come up with solutions, and try to bring the community together so that we can solve our problems and however we want to survive. But what is your thoughts on whatever the government has done so far? I mean, the first stimulus package, everyone was unhappy. There was a lot of noise, and then immediately they came up with a second stimulus package that was specifically addressing SMEs and startups. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's sufficient, or do you think the government is not doing enough? What do you think?
Arvind?
I think from the Rakyat perspective, I think the government has done a lot. Moratoriums on debt repayments, assistance with refinancing or repackaging credit card debt. They've looked at the Rakyat, they've looked at where people have, if you're going to lose your job, if you're going to have loss of income, I need to address how you keep afloat. Debts are a huge commitment. Food is a huge commitment. They've segmented the households well. They've given money, and frankly, I think on where the Rakyat is concerned, they've done a good job. Then they came out and they gave out more money to SMEs. I think they had to pick and choose. I think if there's an SME that's got 1,000 employees, I'm gonna wanna give them a $20-30 million loan, because I'd rather save, not to say I'd rather save, but if I have to save 10 small companies with 2 staff, I'd rather save the individuals as opposed to the company. You know what I mean? By giving them money directly to the workers rather than save that company with 2 or 3 or 5 people. So I think they've done well in terms of the business, on the business side of things. There is a lot of talk on, LinkedIn and social media about how, especially from our startup ecosystem, about how the government should bail out startups. I am completely against that. I think it is moral hazard. I think startups is risky capital. Everybody goes into risky capital with eyes wide open. Investors go in with eyes wide open. The entrepreneur goes in with eyes wide open. Generally, startups don't hire a lot of staff. They are very lean. That's the nature of a startup. So I don't think it's the government's job to save risky capital, risky investments, risky businesses. And there are extenuating circumstances if they provide strategic, benefit to the country and et cetera, but generally no. So so far from the government, thumbs up.
How about you, Dash? What do you think?
I think it's a very difficult situation for anyone, whether it's government or whether you have someone have a wand and to just say, okay, everybody, I'm going to give you something. It's a very difficult situation to satisfy everyone. people will always be dissatisfied with whatever is given. But entrepreneurs' DNA should be that to do a lot more with a lot less. If entrepreneurs have the DNA of, look, every problem is an opportunity. The bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity. And I have to do a lot more with a lot less. I think you could carry on regardless. And any aid that comes along, if it affects you, it's a bonus. If it doesn't come to you, this entitlement mentality has to go. If you want to be an entrepreneur, instead of saying whether the government is done enough or the government is not done enough, I would turn the table on the entrepreneur. The government has done what it needs to do at a given situation. Rightly or wrongly, some people are satisfied, some are not. And that will always be the case. Even if they had found $10 trillion somewhere and they decided to give everybody money, people will still be unhappy. So I think get to work, guys.
Yeah. Right. Interesting thoughts. Uh, so, anything you guys are working on right now that you want to share?
Okay. I'm actually very interested in an area I'm actually working on with a small group of people. See, I believe in the long tail. That means, I mean, there's already the big companies like what Arvind mentioned earlier, the Googles and the Facebook of the world. But then there is this long tail of people who can actually generate and help others. Like, for example, an accountant or whoever who loses their jobs, they don't want to do a startup. Okay, they don't want to go into a gig economy. They say, look, I don't know what the hell a startup is. I've got 2 or 3 children. I got a lot of commitments. I don't understand this jargon of going into an accelerator, working for 3 months. What is all this? I don't get it. So these kind of people are the older ones who are going to be displaced, but they have very, very good skills. And I'm saying that you could actually provide this kind of skills that you have. The idea is to productize yourself, and I'm trying to help many of these people build what I call a one person $1 million company. They may not make a 1 million ringgit, but they become a one person company that they will, like what Kevin Kelly, who's the founder of Wyatt, says, that you could have a 1,000 true fans throughout the globe, and the 1,000 true fans pay X amount over a period of time. You will come to a sustainable level of income. And these people will also need to learn that you actually don't need that much to survive in this world anymore. Now that we are all in COVID, we're staying at home, you suddenly find that you don't really need to eat out. You don't really need to eat uh, in so many times, in a banana leaf restaurant, in a mama restaurant, or in any, I don't know, wherever it is. You eat at home and you spend time at home. So you learn a lot of things in keeping your standard or cost of living low, but you learn to live comfortably. And then you find that your hobbies, your interests, your superpowers can be productized. The new economy, whether people talk about technology or IR 4.0, is about self-expression as well. How do you express your superpowers and commercialize it in the market? So this is something that I'm actually very interested, and I'm actually working on. It's they call it, in I think a few hundred years ago, they call it the Medici effect. This family brought all these people to Italy. The artists, the painters, the poets, and everyone into this. These are all individuals who have amazing skills, who created the innovation buzz because they could all connect with each other and create products and services. So I think you need to become an economic engine on your own now. How do you become an economic engine? How do you, the person in you, becomes the economic engine? What can you serve? You don't need to start a startup. You don't need to raise money. That to me is the next innovation. A one-person company that may not be a startup.
Right. So if someone wants to approach you to, get some advice from you on this, how can they approach you?
Well, my email is everywhere. I'm always on Facebook talking about my wines. You can buzz me there. I'm on Twitter or dash@dashinsights.com, or you can call me on that. You can reach me in so many. Yeah, I think that's the best place to get me. And
Right.
I'm actually having a small group of what I'd call it as I don't know whether to call it a masterclass or just a discussion group, where we are helping people discover themselves, their superpowers are, to see what they want to do. Where even a company is just an imagination of a whole group of people, right? Who wrote the laws and say this is a company law or whatever it is, and then suddenly we have a startup, and startup is no more defined as a company. It's not a small company. It is defined as different things. Then we came up with how to do that. So yeah, I mean, you can also reach me at dash@dashinsights.com. You can send me a mail on that as well. Yeah, so those are things that I think you can do. I think write the new rule book. Yeah.
Right. Arvind, how about you? Would you like to share anything about any of your current projects?
So, yeah, the new project that I'm working on is it's called StartFund, and our mission was clear, right? We was to increase the number of startups created, the startup birth rate of the nation, right? Given this economic disruption, we feel that this mandate is even more important right now. So I would like to make a distinction, right? I've always believed that definitions matter. So between SMEs and startups, there are differences, right? There are differences, and we don't necessarily have to define it, but for argument's sake, let's define it enough to know that there are different sources of funding, there are different business models, there are different rates of growth, etc. Right? Different usage of technology. For example, a nation can have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of SMEs, but even nations that are startup nations like Singapore, Hong Kong, or Estonia, or even the US, right? We're not talking about a huge number of startups, not compared to SMEs. Singapore has somewhere in the region of 3,000 startups. Malaysia, 1,000 to 1,005, and even then, nobody really knows what the number is. My mission is to pick a number and say that Malaysia could easily, what if we wanted to do 5,000 startups in the next 5 years? That would mean we need 5 to 10,000 people out of 32 million people who have the requisite amount of skills to be able to start what is traditionally defined as a startup, right? That's my mission, right? So very much in the mold of lean startup, coming up with scalable business models. I don't think as a country we can't find 5 to 10,000 people who can do this, and I think it's just a question of bringing the ecosystem together. We have more than any other country in ASEAN. We have a lot of government resources across many ministries and many agencies that that are very, very well intentioned when it comes to wanting to grow the number of startups in this country or to grow more success stories. I think the only issue might be an issue of fragmentation, or the efforts are happening in isolation, and maybe they need to be brought together. So one of StartFund's mission is to bring stakeholders together so that we can actually deploy resources more efficiently. So in terms of StartFund, as soon as the lockdown is lifted, we will be launching our full website. We will have training programs on like what I call pre-startup bootcamps. This is for entrepreneurs that have no idea about tech startups, want to get into it, We've got a really strong group of people behind these boot camps, and then just whatever it is to achieve our mission, creating more startups in the country. That's my 5-year plan, right?
Right. So I share that passion as well, right, for startup creation.
That's why we
And
work together.
and we've been working on a lot of programs with that theme in mind. But just to put this into discussion, right? Since Dash is also here, what do you think is the best way to really accelerate this? Because we have accelerators, we have government programs like from Magic, MDAG, and all these agencies, Cradle. But I feel like it's still very slow. I mean, accelerators can only take so many startups in a year. They work with a limited number of entrepreneurs. Government programs sometimes can be too general, symposiums, conferences, and all, which may not directly encourage people to launch a business. So, what do you think, besides accelerators and this kind of general conferences and all that, how else can we really push startup creation? How can we get 500 startups in a year or 1,000 startups in a year? Because I feel like everything is so focused in Klang Valley. That's one thing. But we are a country of 30 million people. Nationwide, we're still big, but everything is very focused in Cyberjaya, KL, PJ, in this region. So, is there a better way of doing this? That's the question I would like to throw.
Well, I have my. Arvind, you want to go first?
No, I mean, you've been in this ecosystem longer than I have, so you can start.
Thank you. But before that, I want to commend Inbar for actually been really being pushing a lot of these things on your own with very bootstrapping and doing a lot of things. Before I go, I don't want to forget thanking you for making all this noise and doing whatever it is that you're doing. Good job, Inbar.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, so I think it's commendable, very, very commendable. I think that your question you're asking is that how do you get 500 people become startups, which I assume you want 500 people to launch companies, to take it to commercialization, to make money. Am I correct? So it's like
Uh,
saying,
yeah, startups solving problems. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like saying, how can you get 500 damn good swimmers compete for the Olympics? So you got to get 10,000 swimmers into the pool.
Yeah.
How do you get 500 top chess players compete to want to become the grandmaster? You got to have 15,000 kids playing chess. You got to create startup junkies in schools, in universities. You got to get problem solvers there. You got to get people failing and looking at failure as a way of learning than to say failure means I fail. You know, every failure means there's no failure. Failure has to be redefined as a place to learn, and the more and more children learn about, oh, I have a problem that I need to solve. They don't need to start a startup. They can start a project. Someone in university, no, we have so many universities. Universities should remove the KPI of, oh, university students should start companies. We shouldn't do that. Of course, I was involved in a program where the KPI was to do a company because that was the requirement of the funding. But this can change. Governments can be educated. Before that, there were governments found it difficult to fund startups because startups need to have a business plan, and they used to work on funding startups based on a business plan. But when the startups change the business plan, then the startup is considered a failure. The funding won't come. Subsequently, the government and the funders learned that the startup is an experiment machine. Therefore, you cannot fund based on a business plan, but you fund based on a problem it's solving and a validated idea it's solving. So you got to have enough people, enough young people saying, okay, I need to know how to ask questions. I need to know how to question the status quo. I need to know how to network. I need to know how to experiment. I need to know how to connect different kind of thinking. And this is what Christensen of Harvard, the late Clayton Christensen, called the innovator's DNA. You need to build the innovator's DNA in schools. You need to build a capability of design thinking in schools. You got to get hundreds and thousands of them to say, I don't need to launch a startup. I just need to do a project. If the project fails, hey, no problem. I'll do another project. I learn something. But the nucleation of a project brings about the thinking that is required, the network that is required, the people that is required, the resources that required, teaches people to do these things. So when you do it over and over again, like you jump into the pool and you start swimming and you start swimming back, or you're playing the number of chess games and you start failing, then it becomes your second nature. And then you naturally have startups coming out of your ears. And even whether there's an economic situation that is going to change or not, they are going to have a mindset to say, okay, the game has changed. Now, how do I change the problem? How do I solve this problem in a different way? Not say, oh my God, the whole economy has come down. What am I going to do? We have helpless people. You can't have that. You need to have survivors. You need to have what Nassim Taleb calls the anti-fragiles. You need to have people who become stronger with complexity. You need to have people who becomes more resilient with uncertainty. That's what you want people to do. So to accelerate the number of successful startups in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you get to the schools, get to the universities, get to the education institutions. You got to have a Kumon for problem solving.
All right, interesting. And Arvind, continue.
Yeah, so education is always key. That's how we become an entrepreneurial nation, right? If you read the book, The Startup Nation, which is just a great book, you realize that the entrepreneurial spirit of Israel comes from deep within the DNA of the society, right? It's not something you can easily replicate through a program. However, if you want results in a year, 2 years, 3 years, so under 5 years, and let's say we need to get somewhere, we have seen how countries like Estonia, Chile, even Singapore, even in the last 3 or 4 years, Thailand, with some right policies in place and good work done by ecosystem builders and just a streamlining of effort, we can make a difference. We can start creating, to create quality, you need to be a bit more targeted. You need to see where the issues are. For example, a lot of startups. I meet a lot of entrepreneurs who have just come up with the idea, and the first question I ask them is, "Have you heard of CB Insights?" And they say, "No, I've never heard of CB Insights." "Have you heard of Crunchbase?" "Never." "Have you heard of AngelList?" "Never." So I said, if you don't, what you need to do is you may have needed to go through 200 to 300 startups in the US or in Europe, read about them, understand what they were doing, not because you have to copy them or whatever, although nothing wrong with copying, but you would have then had the benefit of knowing that the idea that you chose was the one you wanted to do, because that's an informed decision. But to decide I want to do this business without knowing what's out there is because, without knowing that there are similar competitors, which is good, without knowing that, why this thing may have failed somewhere else, or knowing that there's a better idea out there. To me, exposure is the most important. It's the starting point, right? And that is something that is not difficult to fix. You need people with knowledge, people like Dash, yourself, Inba, to be able to share that knowledge with people who are interested or have the entrepreneurial spirit. Really, but it happens at a very early stage. And that's why that's why Inba, we're talking about a pre-startup bootcamp, right? Because what I realize is when someone comes to me and tells me that they want this is product X to solve problem Y, they are no longer can be changed in their mind. They've already decided that's the train, they've laid the track, all right? And even if somebody at that point of time, a mentor says, no, I don't think this idea is going to have much traction, you can run your experiments, but I find that resistance is very high. So in order to really make a difference, you need to talk to entrepreneurs before they decide to get on board. And that's why I've named it as a pre-startup bootcamp, right? Because I want to be very clear about that. We want to talk to you before you come up with the idea, because the ideation is key already. Then, who's your co-founder? Are you going to have a co-founder? Did you take money from an angel investor and give away 60% of your company, right? Did you take 100,000 ringgit of equity and then spend 90,000 ringgit building your paying somebody else to build your app, right? So these things are small mistakes, but seemingly small, but it turns out to have huge impact later on. By right, you should be spending $25,000 to build your MVP and then $75,000 getting customers to show traction. But in Malaysia, we have the reverse, right? When Cradle gives you 300,000, 250,000 goes to an app developer because in the founding team, there is no tech person. So there are lots of these little things that I feel that if we get to entrepreneurs early and we tell them that, these are the small hacks you can do, I think the success rate can be increased quite dramatically, right? In terms of to scale, Inbar, what you're talking about, we only have to look at Singapore, Taiwan, Korea. They flood the country with incubators, not accelerators, incubators. Because accelerators by definition take companies that are already, at some level of formation and then accelerate the business. It's very much about scaling, right? At least that's what accelerators in the US are supposed to do, right? We need to be taking in entrepreneurs and getting them to that point. So for every one accelerator, we should have 20 incubators. But, some numbers, I think Singapore has 120 incubators, Taiwan has 145, Korea has 300, Estonia.
How many do we have?
According to official numbers, 50, 60, but I'm an ecosystem builder, as are you, as are Dash. I don't think we could write down a list of 50, 60. I suspect actively right now, probably about under 10. Like, I'm talking about commercial.
But do you think the co-working spaces have taken over that role? What do you think? Or is that not enough?
No. An incubator is not the physical space. An incubator is the program, right? It's having people it's having experienced people who can give you commonsensical, pragmatic advice, right? And I think that's the most important thing. No fluff. One of the things I like talking to Dash is because the advice is pragmatic. Pragmatic advice is what people need, right? Just give me the no bullshit. This is what I need to do. Listen, you need to call this person. You need to, it's things like that. Often that's what entrepreneurs really need in the early stages. Nobody needs a lot of, big strategy papers or pitch decks and all that. I mean, really, it's about building a business. Sometimes it's as simple as, someone coming and telling you, listen, instead of trying to get all these customers yourself, why don't you partner with this person and accelerate your business that way? It's a simple thing like that, That advice, that's to me, that's the program, right? That's the incubator. It's the program. The perks and the physical space is, I'm honestly, I don't see why we can't have a virtual incubator, But whatever it is, we need more incubators in the country, many more.
Right. Okay, so this other thing a few years ago, I was thinking about this, right? Going to the level of high school. Because in high school, we have scouts, we have St. John's, things like that. We have the maths club, we have the science club. But I never had an entrepreneurship club. The only time I heard that the word usahawan is, a few pages in Kemahiran Hidup. So I was quite lucky because I had some, entrepreneurs in my family. So I managed to learn something from them. I got inspired by them. So eventually, one day when I wanted to become an entrepreneur, I had a bit of that knowledge. But do you think we can look into something like that, like setting up entrepreneurship clubs in schools? How difficult will that be? Any thoughts on that, Dash? I think you have more experience in this.
I think there are some entrepreneurship clubs already in schools. Right. We actually run a program called Spark. Basically, it's the nucleation process of design thinking and all that for many, many schools. We have a VC company that actually is a sponsor. I can tell you, I don't know whether they would want me to tell, but anyway, they are sponsors of the program, and they are very keen to. They actually understand that you need to take. I think they'll be happy if I tell them. I think it's MAPCAP. They will. They understand that you need to build a pipeline. You got to start in school, and whatever you do, when you say, can we start an entrepreneurship club in schools? Whatever we do, we cannot boil the ocean. We can't say, okay, 10,000 schools are going to have entrepreneurship clubs tomorrow. They won't. But probably the beautiful thing to do is to start with one school. and see, hey, how is this doing, and then maybe ask another few schools to start 10 schools, and then go and approach someone to say, okay, they're doing, maybe the PIBG can do this, we can do, but what is this entrepreneurship school? A lot of people say, okay, you got to teach them finance literacy, la, this, la, that, la, and all that. And you also have to teach the children and the parents what is what is an entrepreneurial, okay, mindset is. You see, the entrepreneurship itself is a bad word now, because parents will say, hey, I don't want my son to be, some parents, I don't want my son to be an entrepreneur or my daughter to be an entrepreneur. I want her to do well in school, I want her to do well in school. I want her to become the top student in school, go to Cambridge or Harvard or whatever it is. I don't care about this, whatever entrepreneurship you're talking about. Half the entrepreneurs, you fellas are all not making money, sitting down in the house, eating noodles. I don't want that, eating ramen noodles. So, so you got to explain and educating the parents, educating the stakeholders that what is an entrepreneurial mindset. It doesn't mean you need to start a company. It just means entrepreneur, it means that starting anything, it could, that's what you need now. Today there are 10 billion people within the age of 15 to 30 in the world. Sorry, not 10 billion. I think it's 10. There's only 7 billion people in the world. I can't, just suddenly forgot the number, but 60% of them are not going to have jobs when they come out. 10 years from now. And you need to find your own jobs. And now with COVID and all that. So, what is an entrepreneurial mindset? Does it mean, and why should you have a club? And what is defining, what is solving a problem? What does that really mean? Many people don't know. If you go to a school, say you can menyelesaikan masalah, they will say masalah apa. So, they will talk about masalah di rumah. That they have a problem at home. They don't know what the problem really is sometimes. So this could be as basic as that. That we need to explain, the language has to be clear, and why the teachers need to be brought into the picture. And maybe start with 1, maybe start with 10, and then slowly scale and show people that this is how it will work. And I think it's a worthwhile effort to do. And this could be a place, I personally believe the private sector can play a huge role in investing in the future. So that's my long answer to a short question.
Right. Very interesting thoughts. Arvind, you have any thoughts on that? Whether high school or maybe at the university level?
Take it to kindergarten, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, like, I think it's, putting it in 10,000 schools, I think anytime you try to do something that large, it's like stimulus package, like, there's always going to be people who are not going to be happy, right? So again, because we're not trying to create 100,000 startups, we're not trying to create 50,000 startups, right? We have to be cognizant of the fact of where we are today, and take a 5 to 10 year view, and realize that even among, what are the most optimistic, scenarios where we can conceivably get to where we want to go in 10 years time, 5 years or 10 years. And if we go from 1,000 to 5,000, we're doing great as a country, right? But the key thing is that, I think if you put going back to schools, definitely as an elective, I think, nothing wrong with that. I don't think an elective, or probably putting it in ECA, extracurricular activities. Probably not in the curriculum now.
No, don't put it in. Never in curriculum.
Yeah. So this is like, something like a maths club, scouts, St. John, that kind of extracurricular activity, right?
You can't get curriculum at the moment, because then it becomes difficult. Because you'll only find small number of teachers who are able to commit their time. Because the moment you put it in the syllabus, then you institutionalize it. Then you can't change it. If you want to change the syllabus, or you want to change it, you can't do that. So you need to keep it always in a very fluid state.
I think, from what little I know, anywhere in the world, the moment you want to step into schools, It's a political minefield. It's not only in Malaysia, anywhere you want to go into schools or into the K-12 system. You spend too much time trying to push it through, than actually getting something done.
I don't know, because maybe that's the execution phase, but I'm saying the idea itself is to get to the schools as soon as possible. And
as an ECA, I say, yeah, I agree with you. Curriculum is too difficult. I think
I've done quite a number of programs with private schools and whatever it is. I still do it, and I find parents are very open to it. They're changing their mindset. Of course, if you look at all the problems that comes, there's problems everywhere. But the big idea is take it to schools. I'm not saying it's going to be any easy. I'm not going to saying there's going to be barriers to entry. I'm not saying there are going to be people who will be against it or whatever. I mean, we can keep talking about that till the cows come home. But the main idea is, should it be taken to school? The answer is yes. And should it be started soon? It should be yes. And can it be started? Of course, if you take a small group of followers, you start with a small group of followers, it will happen.
Right. Interesting. Okay, so moving on from that, I wanted to also talk about our situation now. So now, I know a lot of the webinars and Zoom talks and all that. It tends to be very negative. It's the whole gloom and doom. Everyone is very worried. But just speaking realistically, right? What do you think startup entrepreneurs can do now? 'Cause I know it's very different how startup entrepreneurs operate and SME entrepreneurs operate. But if we are specifically talking about startups, which are now trying to grow and build traction, what do you think they should be really looking into? Like the top 3 things they should be really focused on during the MCO and while we are trying to bounce back.
So I think that I don't know how many people have heard of Peter Drucker. This is 25 years ago, during when I was doing my MBA. Peter Drucker used to say, the leader's job is 2 things. One is to make the current business effective and to create tomorrow's business. Okay. So I will repeat that. The job of the entrepreneur is to make today's business effective and to grow tomorrow's business, or to create tomorrow's business. So if you ask me what the startup entrepreneur should do now, first is the priority is to make today's business effective, meaning that ask yourself, what can you cut off? And what are the costs that you don't need to hold? How do you keep your costs really, really low? They say that you only control 30% of your business at any point in time. 40% is controlled by the competitors and outsiders, and another 40% no one knows who's controlling it. It's all the environment and whatever it is. So you have very little control over situations. So you can take control of what you can control. Cut your costs, cut whatever you don't need. You got to make the tough decisions, tighten your belt, and say, look, you need to leave, or some person has to leave. I mean, it's no more about the ego. Don't try to protect your ego. If you have an office and you don't need the office, get out of the office. Give up the office. Okay. You need to go and break the agreement. Go and talk to the guy, beg, borrow, whatever. Talk to the guy. You are not going to fund your ego. You're not funding your ego. You're funding your business. So if you don't need to live in an office or whatever, just go, sell whatever you don't need, tighten your belt, make your today's business effective. And then as you are doing that, I'm sorry to say, you don't have a choice. You got to create how your tomorrow's business is going to look like. You also have to spend time investing, thinking about how your business is going to look like as soon as you emerge. So you have a tough job ahead of you. You have to think in multiple levels. You can't think in one level. If you don't know how to think in multiple levels, this is a great time to learn. And you got to be like a surfer on a surfboard. You're riding the waves. You're going to fall. You will fall. Climb back again. You're going to ride. You're going to look at the horizon to see when the next wave is coming. At the same time, you've got to pay attention to what is with you today. So, in short, make your current business effective. Meanwhile, create tomorrow's business today.
Right. Arvind, what are your thoughts?
for existing startup entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah, who are now struggling because of the lockdown.
Yeah. So if your business, if business is still continuing, as in you still have clients to, you're still moving product, you're still conducting your service, business is continuing, but obviously, the situation is tough. Then yeah, just you know, keep your head above water, and now is the time to cost cut like crazy, right? I had an interesting anecdote from my mom today. She was telling me about her friend who's a hairdresser, and she was talking to the hairdresser about how she, what she's going to do, how she's going to open her business in the, post lockdown. So she was saying, look, I don't need a shampoo girl, I don't need a colorist. I can shampoo myself, I can color myself, I can do everything. I just take 3 customers a day, right? But 3 customers a day is 500 ringgit a day, and that's how she'll survive, right? So it's about ruthlessly cost cutting and keeping the business afloat. A business that stays afloat has a chance for tomorrow. A business that dies today has no tomorrow, right? For those startup entrepreneurs whose business has come to a halt, as in you can't really do much because you're stuck at home, now's the time to read. Read Lean Startup, read the Startup Manual. Now it's time to really pick up those skills. I'm doing it, and I strongly suggest that this is one of those opportunities that you would never have if you have the luxury to, or you're in a position where you don't have a choice. Use the opportunity to learn. That's what it is.
All right. So, and this other thing, so some friends have been messaging me and all, right, discussing about how to survive this period. So one of the things that comes up is taking a loan. So startups are very used to taking investments, running a business. Many of them burn down. Some of them make revenue and then they grow. What do you think about taking a loan to survive? Because in the SME world, it's very normal. Businesses take loans all the time to operate. But in the startup world, it's not a big thing. But what do you think about that? Since this is a very special situation now we're in.
Who's going to give you a loan? The banks have to give a loan to startups.
The government.
I mean,
I think
So-
government has that special loan program, right, under BSN, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if you get it. I mean, by definition, banks don't give loans if you don't have revenues and you cannot collateralize anything, right? That's the architecture of the bank. The bank needs to collateralize something. They need to make sure your cash flow and your profit and loss account, your revenues are there. You have a track record, and you have shown profits. You can pay back the thing. The banks are not in the business of risk capital, so they won't give you a loan. You can forget about it unless you have got a guarantee from someone or whatever.
But I mean, some of the startups could have been doing well last year. They might be profitable. It's just that now they might be stuck because of the lockdown.
Yeah,
But what do you think? Is that a good option, taking a bank loan?
I don't know. I've never taken a loan in my business for my business ever. I don't know. But they got to pay back the loan somehow. And I mean, if they could get a loan, yeah, why not to tide them over? But take a small loan, tide them over for the next 300 days, and then pay it back. But I don't know how easy it's going to be. And it's not the right time to prepare the banks to give you risk capital. I mean, that should have been done long ago. There should be like a so-called startup bank or something that says, okay, I give you some money to tide over. But I don't know. But if you can get, yeah, I think short while is, like I said, it's not, there is no right or wrong answer. If you can take a short loan, basically with the intent of you believe in your business, you think your business is going to do well, you think you're rewriting the rules, everything is going to be okay. The bank has assessed your risk and says, okay, I think I can give this guy a small loan. Then you're going to pay back. And this short money you need for a while is fine. But there's no such thing as the bank doesn't owe it to you to give a loan. It's to say, oh my God, you're an entrepreneur, you got a badge of honor because you've taken a risk. I don't have to give you a loan. I think that attitude has to change from the startup entrepreneurs. Oh, I am entitled because I've taken the risk. Please.
I mean, what are your thoughts on this, on bank loans?
Well, I don't think it's just bank loans. I want to expand it. I mean, you and I, Inba, we talked to Dash as well. We talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. We all know that there's father-mother loans, there's friend loan, there's loan from wife, loan from girlfriend. There's there are a lot of different types of loans, right? And let's not, there are people who go as far as loan from alongs, right? So I think we should address all kinds of loans. Bank loans are the safest loans, right? Because you're not risking life and limb if you get it, right? But I think when it comes to a loan, I think even if you feel that business is going to be great, many entrepreneurs are eternal optimists. It's why I think it goes with the territory, right? And that's the danger. The danger is that is the optimist fallacy, right? Things are going to get better, and if I take the loan now, just tide me over. It's gambler's ruin, right? I just borrow a bit of money because I've been playing the slots for 1 hour. I'm going to strike now, right? Or my luck will turn. But like you said, Dash, these are things you cannot control, right? Number one, leave aside the fact that you cannot control what's going to happen. In this situation, I think it's very important not to be gloom and doom, but to accept as a matter of prudence that things are not going to return to normal. If we feel that the moment this lockdown is done, everything is going to go back to normal, I'm going to get my business again, I think that's going to be very, very, it's dangerous thinking. I don't think if you own a restaurant, if you own a hotel, you own any kind of retail business, if you have an e-commerce, any kind of business that has seen an interruption now, you cannot take it for granted, because we're talking about consumer behavior. If I haven't used your service for 1 month, there is no guarantee that I'm going to come back and use your service after the lockdown is done, right? Or there's no guarantee that I'm not going to go somewhere else. There's no guarantee that I've decided that I don't need this in my life anymore, right? I found a different way to do something, right? The tendency is that we always feel that the moment lockdown, and I'm seeing this happen a lot, things will return when the lockdown is done. Yes, the economy will improve for a macro level, but on a micro level, we should, as a prudent move, just assume that things are never going to return to normal. It is a reset for all intents and, I know it sounds gloomy, but I think when it comes to taking a loan, you are better off letting the business fail than, taking the loan and being trapped in that for, not only will your business ultimately fail, you'll have a loan on top of your head now, So that's my 2 cents on it.
No, it's like I said earlier, don't try to fund your ego, but fund a genuine business.
Yeah.
But if it's a genuine business, you need to tide over, and you can get a small loan. I don't know. It should be possible. It should be okay.
We are in the environment now. Before this, if you thought you had a purchase order or a receivable from an airline, you thought this is a solid, this is money in the bank, right? This is an airline. I won't mention any names. This is an airline, but we are actually in the era now where that airline might go under, right? And you might get 20 cents on the dollar, right? So nothing is for certain now. No matter who your receivables are from, who you had before, clients, I don't think people should take anything for granted. Once the economy reopens, you need to assess. Until then, if you need to take a loan, my flat out advice, if it's based on those types of things, no. If it's based on, I have that receivable, I can collect after this, collection might be 12 months from now, right? Too risky in a way that doesn't allow you to let this fail and start again 6 months from now or 12 months from now. You can't, because you'll be in debt.
Yeah, so you'll be stuck to that loan.
Right? You have no business and you'll be stuck to a debt.
Right. So on other things, during this lockdowns period, we've seen a lot of innovation coming out from Malaysian entrepreneurs. especially from the maker community. You see a lot of things. People are building all kinds of devices for the hospitals, for the frontliners. So, what is the most interesting thing you guys have seen so far? Anything you've noticed on Facebook? Anything you feel really caught your attention?
Yeah, I've seen some of these the 3D printing groups printing those, like some device to help people breathe. It's not a ventilator; it's an aspirator or something like that. I can't remember what it's called, but I was actually quite surprised that they can make something that is hospital grade, medical grade. It's really opened my eyes a lot to how amazing this 3D printer is. In fact, it should be. I think there might be 100 businesses around 3D printing that I never realized before. But it's like AI and AR and VR and drones. These are the underlying technology. The amount of business that can come around it is fantastic, right?
Yeah. Dash, have you seen anything interesting?
Actually, to be honest, I haven't been really following what they're doing. I mean, maybe I have, but I can't offhand remember. But what the innovations that really currently impressed me is that many of the traditional businesses like restaurants and all, they are actually going online. They are actually putting their menus online. Now you can order things online. They have rethought. I mean, when they thought last time, okay, I'll have 10 tables or 15 tables, 60% of it's going to be full today. Now they don't know how many people are going to order from them, and they are going out there with a gumption to say, okay, maybe I could sell to 50 people, maybe I could sell to 30 people. That kind of a mindset that you have not seen your customer, you can't see, you don't know how many orders are going to come. But these restaurants are meeting I don't know how they are estimating how much they need, meeting the needs, learning this, putting themselves in the steep learning curve. I think this is really interesting. I see some of my friends who started restaurants who now got donors donating money to them, that they are going out there. Like one of them is Shankar with his fire grill, who actually is sending things all over the place. He's in Tamantun. Today he put, I think he served for 30,000 people who needed food. These things I find that Malaysians are coming together in a very innovative ways, and businesses are automatically transforming themselves. And when you really need to survive, you need no other choice, but you need to be innovative and transform. To me, that itself is a huge innovation. Amongst, I'm sure there are a lot of young people from the makerspace doing a lot of great stuff. Good on you guys. Some may work, some may not work, but keep trying, keep going, keep doing whatever it is. Who knows? Something may just come up, and you may find that it's something that's good. You know, I
All
need to
right.
go. In another 5-10 minutes because
Yeah.
I have a very early morning, also a webinar kind of thing with US university students, Malaysian students in the US. They've launched a program to iCube. I'm an advisor to iCube, which is association of university Malaysian university students in all over the world. So I'm going to have to get up early to do that. Yeah, but about by midnight I will jump up.
Yeah, I was just about to wrap up.
Okay, sure.
So, anyways, just to summarize, I think we've discussed some very interesting points today. I just wanted to keep the discussion a bit more positive
Sure.
because some of the discussions have been very negative, and it's very demotivating to keep watching a lot of discussions. Because as
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, we have to survive. We have to find ways. So it's no point keep thinking about all the negatives when we can be thinking about positive solutions. So I hope more discussions like this can inspire ourselves and also other people around us. That's what I'm looking at. And on my side, Pixarworks is still, I mean, I run a creative agency. I think some of you know that. Pixarworks Creative is still in business. We still can make websites for you, run your social media marketing and all that. But that aside, I've also been very busy with my grocery aid project. So I started this grocery aid project to send some grocery to families, very unfortunate families who have lost their jobs or lost their part-time income. There's a lot of refugee families who can't work here anyway, but they do odd jobs and part-time jobs, and they've totally lost their income. So we did a crowdfunding project with our friends at Pitchin. So I'd like to thank Cash and Sam as well. The platform has been amazing. They're doing a great job there, and they've helped us to raise almost 15,000 ringgit. Within less than 2 weeks, and we've already sent aid to about 60 families now. And our third round of aid will be going out to another 52 families. So if you guys would like to support the project, the URL is there. Go ahead, check out the page. You can contribute, or you can just buzz me if you have other ways of contributing, or you want to join in the project. We also do all our updates on all the activities that we do under this project. So feel free to hit me up if you'd like to get involved in the grocery aid project. Okay, Arvind, anything you want to say before we end the session?
I think it's just to talk, like when we talked earlier about when you were wrapping up about being positive. I think I completely agree, right? But I think the positivity comes from opportunity, from seeing that this is an opportunity more than anything else, right? Because the truth is, and if it's not clear, this is an opportunity. This is a reset button, right? This is a chance to, whatever you did wrong before, you can actually reset, start again. Or you can pivot, or you can, lose your job and start become an entrepreneur. But before you can see this as an opportunity, you need to see things for what they are. We should not think that, it's going to be the same, this is the way it is. I don't believe that people can see opportunities if their eyes are closed and, they're looking down, right? You have to see the world for what it is. Only when you see will you really open your eyes and you start seeing that, in adversity is, like I mentioned earlier, there's 100 years of companies that have started during a recession. It's not by accident, So definitely there is a ton of positivity, but you cannot be you can't be blind to the surrounding, to the reality around you. You won't the opportunity won't occur to you. That's my check and balance to that.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dash and Arvind, for joining us today. I think we've had a very interesting discussion. Yesterday, there was a lot of talking cock with me, Jung, and Kevin. Today, we have Dash and Arvind. It's more focused on business. I know there are a lot of webinars and all this Facebook Live going on, but I wanted to do this as well because Open Coffee Club has always been a very active community, and now we can't do the meetups and all that. So I wanted to keep the community spirit going. So at least these sessions can get the members together. At least there's some content for them to participate. So hopefully we can keep this going. I would like to invite more interesting personalities to come and share their views. So thank you so much for being with us today. Right. So we'll wrap up with that.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you. Cheers. Bye bye.
Thanks, Inbaraj. See you, Dash.
See you, Arvind. Bye bye.